Today we're going to be talking about writing. I love books. I've pretty much always loved them. They've kind of played a large part in my life, and I feel like without them I wouldn't be the person I am today. And also, as the years have gone by, I've realized my dream is to be a writer. So I'm going to talk about some of the aspects of writing and why it's amazing, just how it can affect you. Let's start off talking about what makes a good story. A story, I don't know, people always seem to say that if there isn't a good story, then there's no reason to read the book. I don't know if I always agree with that, but story is definitely a good place to build upon, because, I mean, if a book doesn't have a good story, you don't really have any reason to be drawn to it, unless it's got a pretty cover, which, don't judge a book by its cover, because sometimes it might be a bad book, sometimes it might be a good book. It's just hard to tell. Honestly, I don't know if I have too much to talk about with story. I think story is important, but not as important as other aspects, which is kind of surprising, right? You'd think I'd just be going on and on about story. Honestly, what I think is most important about a book or, writing, is you have to have good characters to build upon. When I first started writing, it was all about the story and not so much about the characters. I didn't understand how to create a character. I didn't really understand how to create a relationship between the characters. All I knew was that it needed a good story to keep it going. Well, knew as in, that's what I thought. But over the past couple years, I've learned more and more about the fact that it's the character that keeps it going. Like, you can have a amazing story and stuff, but if none of the characters are likable or relatable, then usually you don't keep reading or watching or whatever it is with the bad characters. So nowadays, whenever I'm writing, I always start off with a good, strong character, and always with the protagonists, I always like to put some of my own personal morals, and I just like to create what I think people should be like, or anything. But at the same time, I I try to keep the feeling of human, or the flaw. I think a flaw makes the character better than the perfection that a character can have. The flaw makes you perfect. It's one of my favorite quotes. Because if you create a perfect character and it doesn't have any flaws, then that becomes a Mary Sue, which I'm not going into too much detail. That seems to be something for another time, but it's pretty much a character that is too perfect, too goody-goody, and just, not at all relatable, and that you really wouldn't care about too much. And honestly, it would be really annoying if you met them in real life. But anyway, so yeah, I think character is what creates what makes the whole story. And so those are my personal favorite parts of a story. Character's good, then I'll keep reading, even if I don't like the story that much. I'll keep reading for that specific character, even if all the other characters are bad. That's just the way it works for me. Another aspect about characters is actually the villain. What I always like to do with writing a villain, of course you always have the good versus evil, but I think it's way more interesting when a writer is able to blur the lines between good and evil, when there's a little bit of a gray area. The hero isn't always good. They can be selfish. The villain can have good intentions, but ultimately the price for those intentions are a little too much to really be considered good anymore. And just stuff like that. I guess I could go on and on and on about characters. As you can tell, it's really become my favorite point in writing and reading and just media in general. Like, I don't know. For example, this isn't a work of fiction, technically. The Diary of Anne Frank. You can read that story, but not the story. Well, yeah, the story. You can read her diary and you care about her because she was a real person. And that's why it's continued, because it's heartbreaking to read that story, to read her story and to watch what she goes through, because you see what she's like while you're reading it. And that's why her diary has become so famous. It's because it's a true story, and it's one of the few works from that time, from a Jewish standpoint. The reason you care so much about her is because you could feel the real person, you could feel her personality through every word she wrote. And if you can capture that in your works of writing, and if you can capture what made Anne Frank's diary such a memorable piece of literature, then you've captured a person. Even if it is a work of fiction, you've captured someone. The reason such works of art like, something like Sherlock Holmes, I guess. Reason why those have lasted for so long is because you get to know the characters, you love the characters, and you get behind what the characters feel. And it's just, I think that's what makes or breaks a story. Because I know some I'm not going to say what they are, but I know some shows that they have a really good idea for a story and the setting, but the characters are so annoying and so shallow and obnoxious, and they just don't feel real, that I just can't get into them, even though a lot of people can. And I like my fair share of those, but those are because nostalgia goggles. If I were to just watch them for the first time today, I would not like them, but since I grew up with them, I can still get into them. So I'm not going to mention those because I don't want to get people angry about it. But yeah, but that's my opinion on characters. Sorry, that took up most of the podcast. Real quick, I'll talk about worlds and why creating a world can be so important. In the past decade or so, literature's really been famous. Well, famous literature's mostly been about corruption and politics. I mean, that's always been kind of a famous thing in literature and stuff. It's just, usually through creating an apocalyptic world. I can't say that word, but you know what I mean. World where the government's taken over, usually a very communistic type of government, because, America and all that stuff. A setting is really big, I feel like, because, you can have it in the regular world and stuff, but you can still make it your world in the way, like, you can create, this is again going to talk about characters, but you can create side characters that they don't even have to have a line, but through their actions that your main characters see, that can create the world too, because you can have, for example, I guess in Harry Potter, his family, his aunt and uncle and nephew, cousin, Dudley. That kind of helps set the mood for a lot of the villains in the show, in Harry Potter, not show, book, That kind of just sets that mean tone that part of the world has, and just a character being kind of their sets of values that can create the world. It's just how it is. A religion can set what the world is. Another example, Dragon Age, which it's not a book, but it is technically a piece of writing because you have to write for it. It's a video game. A main part, I just went a little Western there. main part of it is there's this religion called the Chantry, and that they kind of run the world. And whatever runs the world sets what the tone for the world is. If it's dark, if it's militaristic, if it's a free world, is it a nice, peaceful world? Just small things like that. You see, that's why I love characters so much. This is going to be more about characters than anything else. It's just little things like that. Just setting up a world is very important, because then you understand where the characters you create stand in and how the story centers around it. And yeah, I think that's, if I keep going, this is going to be an hour long, which it might be already. I don't know. But I just hope I got across just how much writing is important, just why I love writing so much, and why books are amazing and other works are amazing, like movies and video games, because writing isn't just for books, it's for video games. Even though people probably don't realize it, there's a lot of writing that goes into video games and into TV shows, and a lot of the stuff you're probably into all comes from writing. And I wanted to talk about reason why I have a passion for it, because I have people ask me about it, but I get too shy to really talk about why I love writing so much. So I guess I'll just show this to the next person who asks me why I love writing so much. Anyway, I hope I got what I meant to say across. I'm sorry for my rambling, but thank you for your time, and I guess I hope I made an impact.